Welcome to our Changemaker Sessions tonight. Welcome to those of you who are here live, who I so appreciate, and welcome to those of you who are watching a replay at a later date. Our theme tonight is increasing your powers of persuasion. And just if you don't know who I am, I'm Kimberly Carroll, and I am a coach for change makers. So what that means is I help you do the deep inner work, create the high performance habits and the strategies, basically to be able to make you unstoppable. That's my goal, make you unstoppable. And this evening, folks, we are going to explore tangible tips for more persuasive communications and inspiring others to participate in your mission, to get on board with the issue that you're so passionate about. But first, let's get the chat warmed up, folks. You know, this is part of the Changemaker Sessions that I love because you're all so wise and lovely in your own right. And it's wonderful to, hear your support in the chat for others and your suggestions. So let's see, tell us where you're joining us from. And let's do a 1 to 10. So how persuasive do you feel you are at this juncture in time? Let's make one like, I can't even persuade myself, to 10, I've got the world eating out of my hands. Okay, so 1 to 10, where are you on the spectrum? Because folks, if we want to change the world, that takes a whole lot of getting others on board. Okay, it requires a whole lot of persuasion, and that persuasion may be in the form of a big marketing campaign to reach the masses. It might just be persuasion to get your coworkers to make a culture change in your company. It could be getting your local political rep on board for something, or it could simply be making a change in your own household, inspiring your family to change. So what I want to do today is I want to get you more skilled in inspiring folks to buy into your vision of a better world. Let me go over the chat really quickly, and I just want to see how people are feeling, where you're at, where you're joining us from. Tenebrae's joining us from Denver, says 3.5. Barb, Massachusetts at 4. Viral's in Vancouver, the V in the V. 3 to 7 depends on the situation. I can totally relate, Viral. Carrie and Ryan, you're both a 5. Mom and son sharing the same part of the spectrum. Valerie is in Miami at 5. David is in Toronto at 2. Anne is in Toronto at 5. We've got Deborah in Toronto at 4. Robin in Kitchener at 3.5. Kirsten's in Halifax at 2. Oh, come on, Kirsten. Now I'm going to be on you for now on. Ina's joining us from Toronto at about a 6. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good rating. Carrie is in North Van at about 5. She's got the info, she's got the passion, but gets frustrated too easily. We've got Connie from Ottawa at 3 to 4. Lucy's joining us from Toronto, and Jennifer is joining us from Vancouver and is at 7. All right, well, we've got a nice little range, but man, I don't think there's anybody above a 7 here. So we've got some work to do tonight. I like that. I like that we're all ready and we're juicy and ready to go. So folks, I think we're going to start off tonight because we can talk about power and persuasion and all that sort of thing. But if we're really not embodied, if we're really not centered, if we're really kind of not present, not a lot of this takes hold. So I think let's just do a quick little check-in to get us a little bit more centered and present. So I'm going to just ask you to, wherever you are, getting comfortable in your seat. If you want to lie back, you can. If you want to get a blanket, you can. But getting yourself as comfortable as possible. And when you're ready, I'm going to get you to close your eyes or cast your gaze downward. And tonight we're talking about being persuasive and the power of persuasion. And in that, a big piece, I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert, is how to be a good listener. So let's just take in a nice big deep breath. Let's just get quiet. And I'm going to get you to just listen to the sounds in your environment in this moment. All the different sounds. And if you've used this time to go in, think about something else, come back. Come back to right here, right now. What do you hear? This moment is the most precious that exists. What do you hear? What sounds good and familiar? What's new? What's curious? And I want you now to see if you can, might not exactly be to hear it, but if you can tune in to your heartbeat. And you might think you're imagining feeling your heartbeat. But if you're still enough, you can actually feel the vibration. Some people can even hear their heartbeat. Hmm. Wow. And now just going back to the sounds in your environment, I want you to choose one sound that you can focus on. Choose it now and just get tunnel vision on it or tunnel hearing on it. Breathing into it. Almost feeling like you could climb right into that sound. Like you could get into it and stretch in it, feel it vibrate through you. Relax into it. And now that we're just a little bit more present, a little bit more in the moment, I always like to start off our sessions with just checking in with yourself with a lot of tenderness and a lot of curiosity. Just asking yourself, how are you, sweetheart? Buddy, how are you? And then just see what feelings sort of come up in response. And whatever comes up, just breathe into it. Just create some space for it, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. How are you? And you can even, there might be several feelings coming up, and you can just silently to yourself name each feeling and then move on to the next one. All right. Let's take in a nice big cleansing breath. And on the exhale, let's just do a nice shake out. Just ragdoll with the shoulders going back and forth, going down into the stomach and the hips, shaking it out, and even getting the head and the face and all the facial expressions shaken out. And when you're ready, coming back to eyes open. Okay. Yeah, we needed that a little bit. So no worries about what you did or didn't feel. If you're not used to checking in, if you're not used to getting present, it can just be a whole monkey brain happening. But once you do it a little bit more regularly, you're going to find that you can tune into deeper and deeper places. And I always like the question, folks. How are you? How are you, buddy? How are you, my dear one? It's a good one to ask every day. It's a good one to ask several times a day, because that is what starts to solidify that self-relationship. And that self-relationship is what ultimately can give you the confidence to take on the world, okay? Or at least take on the next conversation that you are trying to be persuasive in. So speaking of which, let's get into it. Let's get into our theme tonight. Persuasion. A lot of people kind of think of this idea of being persuasive or persuasion as a bit of a dirty word. It's something that, dirty marketers use. But we're using the powers of persuasion all the time. When we are talking to friends about which restaurant we want to go to, if we are talking with a team about which project to focus on. Sometimes it's using persuasion with yourself, convincing yourself to get off your ass and exercise sometimes takes persuasion. Persuasion it just means your way of getting others to understand why something is meaningful. Okay, that's all persuasion is. Getting someone to understand why something is meaningful. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the elements that will help your powers of persuasion. And there's so many, and there's so many great books on persuasion and how to influence people. And we're going to stick to some fairly foundational ones today. I say foundational, but they can still be very groundbreaking for some folks. So the first one I just want to talk about is fairly logistical, and that is being as informed as you can be on your topic, your issue, your project, your whatever, so that you can be confident. Okay, so getting really clear before embarking on your sort of act of persuasion. Now, let's just get clear on what sort of acts of persuasion are. Very often they're in conversations, so I'm going to be talking a lot about persuasive conversation tactics, but they can also be persuasion in your writing, in an email. It can be writing in a blog or a newsletter. It can be the power of persuasion when you are meeting with higher ups, when you are trying to get a group to buy into a direction you're going. It can be a marketing campaign. So the power of persuasion we can address a lot of the things we speak about tonight in all these forms. Like I said, I'll kind of go back to conversations a lot, but if you are running a group of your own and you have all of these other forms of how you help to persuade people, then keep applying everything we talk about to those as well. So as far as knowing your stuff, a big part of the problem that happens when we're in a situation where we're trying to get someone to buy into our way of looking at things is that we don't have enough confidence. And there are a lot of reasons we don't have a lot of confidence, but one of them should not be that you don't know your stuff. Okay. What are the issues that you're addressing? So if I know you're probably all here with something in mind, like this is something that I'd really like to persuade people around, especially it might be an issue, it might be a project, it might be a direction. And it really helps your powers of persuasion to know this issue, project, or whatever inside and out. So not only does that instill confidence, and of course, when you instill confidence, people are more open and their guard is down, more willing to listen, but also it allows you in these persuasive conversations to be more responsive. Okay. If you really know your stuff, it's okay for your talking points to get interrupted because you know it well. You can actually listen to what the other person is saying or what the feedback is, and you're able to return or you're able to reframe it with new information. So I'm a big fan of talking points. Okay, when you have something that you are trying to be persuasive around on a regular basis, whether it's promoting your business, whether it is racial justice rights, whether it is a conversation about diet change, you need to have talking points. Okay, and I'm not talking about pulling out a cheat sheet every time you embark on in a conversation, but it's about getting it organized in your mind. Okay, when you write it down, it actually helps you to get it sorted in your brain. So I always recommend you have 3 to 5 talking points. Okay, and that's if you're meeting with your politician or you're meeting with your mother. Okay, it's having 3 to 5 talking points that really hit your area that you're trying to change their thinking on or trying to influence their thinking on, and you have 3 to 5 really solid points that you're able to come back to. Okay, some people talk about having an elevator pitch for their business or their project or their initiative. This is kind of like 3 to 5 little elevator pitches on different parts of that. And so, yeah, so for example, I'm a big fan of electoral reform, specifically proportional representation, and I really believe it's key for our healthy democracy, a healthy democracy going forward. And so, what I've had to do, because it can be very complex and it has a lot of things, I've had to do my own little talking points. So I can say, when somebody goes, well, proportional representation seems like such a pain in the ass, I can say, well, it's worth it because of this, and it's not a pain in the ass because of this. And this is going to be how it helps the health of the democracy. This is how it's going to engage people. So I have my talking points, so that when it used to be when somebody said, well, why should I do proportional representation? Why should I care? I'm like, well, there's lots of reasons. It was just so vague, and it just didn't instill confidence. Now, some of you are going to be speaking on an issue that is so far ranging, and I do not expect you to know everything inside and out. That is a recipe for disaster. Okay, maybe once you've been in it for years and years, you will know an issue inside and out. But for now, I think it's important that if you have a wider issue, that you keep your info targeted. Okay, that you choose pieces of your issue that will be yours for now. Okay, you don't need to have the whole kit and caboodle. You just need to recognize, okay, these are the pieces that are important to me, or these are the pieces that I can really relate to, or that the people around me I feel really need to know, and keep that on track. So for example, I consider myself an environmentalist, but I by no means know everything about the climate crisis. Okay, I don't. Climate crisis can include everything from greenhouse gases to biodiversity to recycling to ocean acidification to solar panels. I mean, there is just no way. So, if for example, environmentalism is your place, choose an area in the environmental issue where you can focus. Okay, maybe you particularly focus on the effects of not going past our temperature tipping point. Okay, or maybe you focus on solving soil health, which is not grazing, by the way, I'll just tell you. And so to be able to choose a few key things so that you don't get overwhelmed. Okay, I would rather you are really good and really well, like really solid on some targeted places within an issue, than you are sort of vague and not really educated about anything. All right, there's so many other people in the world. You don't need to take everything on. So one other thing I just want to say about this idea of information and knowledge is, if you don't have an answer, folks, when you're in a conversation or a presentation, never lie, never cover it up. Just say, actually, I don't have that answer right now. Give me your email. I'll get back to you on this, or I'll follow up. I'll find that out. That's a great question. And you never want to endanger your credibility by giving an answer that isn't right. Yep. Okay, so now let's get a little bit more strategic in terms of persuasion, in terms of getting someone to hear you, okay, and to get you. So the first rule of being persuasive is to put your audience at the center. Okay, whether that audience is your readers of your emails, whether that is your kids at the dinner table, whether that is the politician on the other side of the table. Okay, it's putting them at the center. So in what you say, it's really important that you are speaking directly to them. And really noting what they're all about and what would resonate with them. And well, there's ways of finding more out about that, but I just want to sort of start by planting that seed. So whether it's a casual conversation or whether it's something more formal like a meeting, it's important to do your homework about them. Okay, what makes them tick? What do they care about? What drives them nuts? How do they see themselves? What's their image of themselves? What have they done in the past? What do they fancy themselves as? Just anything that you can do as far as homework, even if it's in that split second. Say you're at a party and you're having a casual conversation. What do you know? What have you heard about this person in the last half an hour? What do you know about the way they're dressed, or, the things they're saying? Be able to respond to that. So I love an example. So as some of you know, I run something called the Animal Justice Academy, and we were doing an action around a bill that is trying to get some of the most severe forms of animal testing off the table. And so one of our AJAers, Laura, her MP was conservative, and which is always a tough sell with animal issues. And but she did her homework. She was strategic in her powers of persuasion. And so I'll just read you. I'll read you what she wrote to me. She said, okay, so she checked his social media. She checked past articles. She read that he was once a small business owner. So she played up how non-animal methods are a growing industry. She read that he has a special interest in finding solutions for cystic fibrosis. So she definitely leaned into the argument of non-animal methods, such as organs on chips, as being more effective and efficient. And then when she saw on his Facebook that he had been given an award to a local Humane Society shelter, she knew there was a high probability that he was a dog lover. And so she brought that up in the meeting. And yes, he spoke of the two senior dogs that he recently lost, and they had this connection together. So that's an example of not only doing her homework, but putting him at the center of this issue. Now, another way of being aware of putting the person that you are speaking to at the center, when you're in terms of in-person advocacy, never make your conversation a monologue. Okay, I know a lot of people in advocacy who spit out as many facts as possible without taking a breath. And first, nobody likes to feel like they're trying to be converted. Okay, but also to be persuasive, you need to know your audience and what resonates with them, and that requires a true conversation. Okay, folks, we as humans, we're self-centered creatures. We see everything through our own lens. That's how we've survived as a species. Okay, so I'm not making digs at us. I'm just saying, like, we need to work with this. So if you want to change folks' minds and hearts, you need to know their minds and hearts. Okay, you need to know where you're starting. And so the power of curiosity and the power of listening are a persuasive person's best friend. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about curiosity. Another problem that a lot of advocates have is they make the mistake of regarding the person that they're trying to influence as an opponent or as a mark. okay, a mark. And folks, if you are going to be able to influence people, you need to know them, they need to know you, and you need to recognize that they are individuals with their own universe of pain, hopes, and fears. They're not just a mark. They're not just an opponent. They're not just an obstacle. So what about if instead of trying to explain your point in 20 different ways to this person, you just stop and you ask some clarifying questions. Okay, so you mention something and then you ask, so, what does that mean to you? How does that feel? How does that land with you? And then you try to truly understand where they're coming from. When someone is blocked around something, when they are just not willing to go there, there's something scaring them or confusing them. Okay, so listen to it. What are their fears? What's confusing them? What is motivating them? Then you can respond in ways that could actually help you get through to them and move the needle on things. Okay, so that listening, those questions and that listening. Active listening also doubles up in that it goes a long way in getting folks to let their guard down. Okay. If you can give folks a chance to be heard, okay, if you can let them speak, if you can acknowledge what they've said, you can, first of all, set them more at ease. When people feel like they're being heard, they tend to engage more. But then you can also use what they've shared as a way to frame your next point so that they can get what you're saying in a better way, like so that what you're saying gets through to them. Okay. If you better understand their reasoning, you can then fine tune your messaging to take those reasons into account. Now, the other thing that I think is really great about having a conversation is that you can be really observant of the social cues and you can tailor things as you go. Again, as long as you know your stuff well and you're able to be responsive, you can move in the right directions to keep folks engaged. An engaged person is one that has the canvas is there to influence them. So it's almost like a little bit of a game of warm or colder. Is that what it's called? Warmer or colder? Warm, like how you're like, you're getting warmer, you're getting warmer, you're getting colder, you're getting colder. I think there's an actual name for that. But that's how it can work in situations like that. You're talking about something and you're starting to see you're losing them. So you move the needle on it a bit, you adjust it a bit, and then you're like, oh, they're starting to engage a little bit. Oh, I'm going on the right direction. Warmer, warmer, warmer. So it's a really great way to be able to, in the moment, be really responsive to what speaks to this person or these people in particular. For some, for a lot of people, especially if you're dealing with a huge issue, a huge social justice issue, they can be resistant because they're rooted in their culture in some way. They have long held beliefs that are in opposition to it. They may have huge fears about the change that they may have to make if they buy into this belief or this issue. So another thing that's really, really important to think about in terms of persuasion is you need to make their why to do something stronger than staying the same. Okay, you need to paint a picture for them of how things can be better, more expansive for them if they're able to make this change, if they're able to break free from some of these things that are stopping them, that are putting up this resistance. So, for example, there's a lot of people that I hear from and they're like, I don't want to, give up all these words and phrases that I've always said because it might be hurtful to some marginalized groups. Okay, that's what a lot of people think. There's no more humor in the world. I can't even joke around or whatever. So, and that's a strong feeling. Oh my God, like I can't even be myself anymore. So what you need to do is you need to give them a stronger why. You know, um, you know, have them picture an environment where everyone feels seen and cared for and lifted up. A world where, yeah, there's so much equality and so much respect, and where people who have felt marginalized for so long, finally feel like they're being respected and cared for by society. Wow, that's worth, giving up a little bit to having a little bit of inconvenience. Or I like to think about, the moment. I was just telling this story, I think last night, or a couple of days ago. No, it was just last night. And I was telling them about when I first went veg. I was a huge meat eater, and it was 27 years ago. And I was at a friend's place after twin calves had been born. And I loved meat. I just loved meat, but I also loved animals, and they were really at odds with each other, obviously. And I went in for dinner after falling in love with these calves and just, playing with these, we call them grass puppies, all day. And we sat down for dinner, and they were serving my favorite steak. And in that moment, my why became stronger for the animals. At that moment, I looked at that steak and I went, Kimberly, your ethics can be stronger than your appetite. And that was it. And so it was just a matter of that why. That why were those two twin calves. And I did not want, I did not want to see any harm come to them. And I knew what I was doing was it was going to directly harm other, if not them, it was going to harm, it had harmed ones that had been calves at some point, and somebody was eventually going to harm them to be the steak on their table. And so it's about giving folks a different vision. So the different vision I saw was, I can be with these calves and not have it weigh on my conscience. Okay, I can have this heaviness lifted from me. That suddenly felt a lot stronger than my appetite. All right, so make that why juicy, make that why feel so good, so expansive, make it a no-brainer. All right, folks, just so you know, if there's something that you comes up while I'm talking and you have a question, I'm following the chat, so you can always put something in the chat, or if you have a situation that you'd like to have me sort of get my eyes on, you can certainly put your hand up. Okay, I can't actually see the full screen right now, so you'll have to do the official hands up. All right, so let's move on to tailoring your message in terms of persuasion. So this is getting back to a little bit more logistical things, but when you are centered around your audience, as we just spoke about, you can vary your approach and your style, which can be incredibly effective. Whether that, again, is a casual conversation, whether it's an Instagram reel, whether it's a presentation with some powers that be, it really goes a long way if your words, your language, your body language, your tone, and your appearance feels accessible to those you're communicating with. Okay, so just think about it. Think about how you would use a very different sort of energy if you were going into an elementary classroom to teach, to talk to the kids. Okay, there'd just be a totally different, like, high energy, big facial expressions versus going into a corporate boardroom where, everything is pretty tight to the chest. They very much value, a degree of decorum, professionalism, versus say doing outreach at a Gen Z event. Okay, maybe maybe a music festival or something. Okay, where it's just like peace and love, and let's just get groovy. And so it's, a lot of folks think that by adapting themselves to different environments that they're betraying who they are. But I would argue that we have a range of who we are. I know I do. I know that sometimes I can be in a coaching session and dealing with someone who's got trauma, and I'm going to be very soft, and I'm going to be very present and very still. And then sometimes I'm going to be at a party and I'm going to be loud and I'm going to be boisterous and I'm going to be swearing like a sailor. Okay. And so neither of those are false. They're just different ranges, different ends of the range of my character, of my personality. And so being able to just dig into that and see if you can find a little something to apply to the specific areas that you go into. People are generally so deeply influenced by body language, by expression, by tone of voice. Okay, so it's really important that, it's important. I find it important to practice in the mirror. If it's not something that comes naturally to you, like, for example, if somebody's told you that you have a resting bitch face, you might want to do some work in the mirror. Okay, and that's for men and women. And just to be able to go, when I'm just listening, I have no malice, but my face is saying otherwise. And so just being able to give yourself a little bit like, okay, yeah, I need to have a little bit of a knowing smile on my face for me to sound like I'm listening and not displeased. All right. And so, yeah, so I love a little bit of practice in the mirror, but generally having a more open stance, having at least just it doesn't have to be a big on smile. In fact, I get a little bit triggered when people say, well, you should be smiling in these things. Well, screw you. But I like to think about having at least a knowing, like a little bit of a knowing grin. Okay, that's a really great place to work from, a knowing grin. And I also love the idea of listening or talking with soft eyes. That doesn't mean passive eyes. They can still be powerful, but there's something about when you listen, and I think everybody knows what I mean about soft eyes. When you listen with soft eyes, people really feel heard. Okay. My friend Lucas Soloway talks about Malcolm Gladwell's A Tipping Point, which I actually haven't read. I've heard, I feel like I've read it. I've heard everything about it. But he was talking a little while about how the tipping point analyzed people who turned fads into trends. Okay, so doing a big analysis of those individuals who turned fads into trends. And this is what he found in the book, okay? In every case, these people are friendly, they're optimistic, and they're interested in others, okay? They express a genuine interest in others, and then those others return that interest, okay? It's really important for you to remember that people don't often remember the details of what you said. They remember how you made them feel. All right. So anybody who gets really caught up in, oh, I have to say it just perfectly, screw that. You don't need to say it perfectly. Say it, genuinely, say it the best you can, but it's really about it's about the vibe you're putting out. Okay. It's about the energy that is around that. And it's about how you interact. I remember hearing about Jackie Kennedy Onassis, and she apparently had this incredible talent for making the person she was talking to feel like they were the only person in the world at the time. Incredible talent to have, very persuasive. Okay, if you can make someone feel like they are the only person that exists right now in the world, Can you imagine how engaged they'll be? Okay, so just a little something to keep in mind. Um, I am just going to check into the chat and make sure that we don't have any questions here. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go back to these questions in a little bit. I'll go get through some of the main points, and then we'll dive into some of these questions. Okay, this is a really important one. Speak to the people, your audience's aspirations, and not their lack. Okay, so you want to, again, in the vein of making people feel like they're in a place where they are expansive enough to change, you need to make sure they stay open and engaged. And the fastest thing to make them unengage and close down like a steel trap is shame. Okay, so we need to find ways of being able to speak some hard truths sometimes without there being shame involved. So in your exchanges, instead of making them feel ashamed about who they are, how about focusing on the part of them that you want to grow? So one little strategy for this is to acknowledge one of their more noble qualities when you are about to speak one of those harder truths. Like, uh, I know how committed you are about staying on top of the issues. So I think you're probably going to want to hear what Indigenous folks are saying in this situation. And then blah, there it is. Okay. And that person is like, oh, they see me. They see that I'm very conscientious. They see me as somebody who is concerned with this. I'm listening. Okay. As opposed to, you don't know what you're talking about. You obviously don't care. What is wrong with you? Wall up, nothing else getting in. Okay. Nothing else. And another example could be, I know you care so much about animals. I see you're so good with your dog. So I thought you'd want to know about some of the horrific conditions I've been finding out about with egg-laying hens. Like you wouldn't believe it. Something like that. Okay. So it's just like, I know you care about animals, so obviously you're going to want to know about this. And that person is like, yes, oh, I'm an animal lover. I identify as an animal lover. Tell me what I need to know. It's not always going to act like that. Some people are just not going to listen. But I'll tell you, coming at it from that place is going to be you're going to have far more wins than going, you know what? I see that you're eating an egg sandwich. You need to know why that's so bad. Okay. That again, just a very big difference. So by showing them that you respect some aspect of them, their defenses are much more likely to be down. Now, even in those times when you have to directly question or criticize someone's behavior, which we do have to do. Okay. Again, there's some hard truths, and we don't have all the time in the world to change this world before it goes over the edge of the cliff. So what you can do in a situation like that is you can acknowledge one of their more noble qualities at the outset that can show them that there is an aspect of them that you think is good. And you can say something like, you have such a big heart. So something, so if they're, let's just say they're really resistant to something. Okay. Like you've told them something and they're like, yeah, no, I really can't care about that. I can't care about that. And so that's when you would say, I know you to have such a big heart, or I can tell you've got such a big heart. So there must be something about this that's really like scaring you about it. Or I've always been so impressed by what a go-getter you are. So there must be an obstacle you're having a hard time navigating around. Okay. There must be just something that is really a bugaboo for you. When you reflect something more noble back to them about themselves, they tend to rise up to that level. On the other hand, if you reflect back to them that they are a rotten or stupid person, they will fall down to that rotten and stupid level faster than you can say stupid. Okay, it'll make your head turn. Folks, shame is one of the most unconstructive places one can be. Okay, it's almost impossible to work with. Shaming might get them to stop, folks to stop what they're doing momentarily, but when people change just out of shame and not out of true understanding or connection, it doesn't last. Okay, if we want a world of love and integrity, we need to start weaving those qualities into our everyday, into our every action. And so invoking shame, it's not going to help. A little dose of guilt is a little bit of a different thing. Okay, let me tell you the difference between shame and guilt. Shame is you are a shitty person. Okay, you did this bad thing and you are a shitty person. Guilt is I did this shitty thing. Okay, it's not I'm a shitty person. It's I did this thing and why did I do this? Okay, so there's nowhere to go with shame. Shame is you did this bad thing and you're a shitty person. Well, where are you going to go from there? Okay, so shame is not constructive. Now, again, I always try to hit this home when I'm talking about not, creating too much shame or coming from a sort of loving place. That doesn't mean not standing up strongly and consistently and sometimes very loudly for what is meaningful to you. But it's just about where that action or that scream or that charge comes from, making sure that it's coming from a place of love and integrity, the love and integrity that we wish to see the world grow into. Okay, so another aspect for being able to persuade people around some of those hard truths is speaking from the I. Okay, speaking from not the I, but the I. So instead of telling people why they should do something, how about telling them why you did something, why you have done something, or you are doing something? Okay, so for example, instead of immediately ripping into someone for not considering their privilege, maybe you can recount how you never used to get it either, and share with them what it was that first started to change your mind, whether it was an interaction or a quote or a video. You're likely to see people's defenses start to relax if you can say, yeah, I've been there, and they become more open to discussing. Okay, if you haven't gotten it by now, a lot of this power of persuasion thing is really trying to keep that wall of defense from coming up. You could also try to explain it through your eyes, make it as personal as possible. Like after spending time with pigs, I realized how sensitive and playful and loving they are, and bacon just started to become kind of awful to me, probably similar to how you would feel if your dog was being served. So that's just really acknowledging I ate bacon, I love bacon, I had an experience that made me go, maybe bacon isn't all it's cut out to be, and this is maybe how it could feel to you right now. Another thing that really can help is showing humility in those personal situations, sharing how you're not perfect and what you struggle with. So, for example, I do talk about the terrible environmental effects of flying. I still fly though. And so I talk to people. I say, look, I'm far from perfect. I still fly, even though I know how damaging it is, but I am very much trying to get my carbon footprint as far as flying down. So this is what I'm doing. So I shared, last week that I took the bus to New York instead of flying. And I've tried to limit, I have a cap on my flying every year. And so I talk about that, but I talk about it's hard. like I have this wanderlust. I love to travel, and my family lives in another, like lives 24-hour drive away from here. It's tough, so I get it, but it's just having that conversation. So being able to say, yeah, I'm not perfect, or I struggle too, but I'm still moving towards this. Doesn't work with everything, but it can work with some things. So basically the formula that I'm telling you is, I understand how you feel about X. I used to feel that way until I experienced X. And that's why I changed my mind to X. Okay, so that's the formula. And actually, I probably should have used X, Y, and Z, but you get the drift. Not a mathematician. But let me here. I'm going to just write this formula down, and I am just going to put it into the chat for you so you have it there. Okay, now I've got an X, Y, and Z in it for you. Okay. All right. Hopefully they're still following me. And again, I'll come back to the questions in a minute, folks, just because I do have a hard time multitasking. Okay, let's talk now about being persuasive while not trying. Okay, now, it's not always about what you say, folks. Often your powers of persuasion come from who you are and how you are. Okay, one of the most powerful approaches as an advocate or as an activist is simply to be awesome. Okay, when somebody says, how can I help in this movement? I'm like, be awesome. Tell people that you're, that you're an Indigenous rights activist, and be awesome. Tell people that you are a biodiversity advocate, and be awesome. Okay. That is a very important part of it, because you need, if you're going to inspire people to buy into your vision of a better world, people are going to need to be drawn to you. They're going to want to listen to you. They've got to want to emulate you, or at least find you interesting. Okay. And so how do you do that? Well, first of all, be well-rounded. Okay. No one wants to be friends with someone who is one-dimensional. Okay. No one wants to be friends with somebody who has just got one note. They're likely to just dismiss what you have to say. They're like, well, that person, I can't even understand them, so why would I listen to what they have to say? So on some levels, you need to have interests beyond your mission. And you need to reflect that in your conversations, in your social media, in the activities you do. Let's go back to social media for a second. Don't be posting 24/7 about your issue. Okay, nobody except the most converted, the most, the ones that are singing in your choir are going to be watching that. No way. Show other parts of yourself. Okay, show your interests that you might have in common with the rest of the world, relationships, experiences you're having in other parts of your life. Show your humor, show your personality. Be a full person. Okay, take an interest in other issues besides yours and lend your support to them. Find your joy in life and spread it around. Okay, so I am very, I don't really have this written down, but I haven't concretized it at all. But I think in my mind on my social media, I'll do one issue, and then I'll do two sort of non-issues, and then an issue. I'll go kind of 2-to-1, maybe 3-to-1, depending on what's happening. Okay, so just to keep that in mind, that if you want people to buy into your project, your initiative, or your issue, they need to buy into you. And that requires being a full person. Okay, not just a walking PSA. Now, we can't be persuasive when we're just huddled up with other people that have like minds. We have to get change makers like you into every social circle. That's how the world changes, folks. Okay, if we insert some of that change-making energy into every corner of the society. Another thing that is important in terms of this is make activism and whatever path you're promoting look good and accessible. So, for example, if you give the impression that being an environmentalist means never getting in a moving vehicle, never having a shower, constantly being miserable about the upcoming climate apocalypse, nobody's going to be signing up for that. Okay, I mean, I am one to talk a lot about the upcoming climate apocalypse, but generally, I use it very sparingly. Instead, what you could portray it as is this deep, natural, compassionate, interconnected, healthy, joyful way of living as an environmentalist. Sign me up. Okay, do you get the difference? It's like you are portraying the why, the good part of the why rather than the awful part of the why. Again, sometimes we have to get very real about what's happening. Sometimes we have to, show stuff that people are automatically going to get that wall up around. But if we, if first of all, if they get that from somebody who they also know has a sense of humor, who they also know loves their mother, who they also know, has fun taking selfies, it's going to be easier to take. Okay, that spoonful of medicine has a little sugar to go down with it. Okay. Another thing that I really want to say at the end of the day is you also, when you're in a position of persuasion, take the damn pressure off yourself. Okay, you do not need to change everyone's minds on the spot. That's too much pressure. And what happens when there's too much pressure? Your presence goes out the window, your listening goes out the window, your perception goes out the window, your personality goes out the window. It's not helpful. Instead, think of these exchanges, whether that be a meeting, a social media post, a conversation, as planting seeds. Okay. I remember hearing a stat at the beginning of my time as an activist, and I'm so glad I heard it. Something like it takes a person hearing a similar message 21 times before they really get it and take action. Okay, I've heard different numbers. I've heard 20, I've heard 13, I've heard whatever, but 20 makes sense to me. And it's a good one to keep in mind. So sometimes you're really lucky and you hit somebody on the 21st time and you're like, woo, I'm such a persuasive mofo. And other times you are actually just the 6th or the 12th, or sometimes you're the 1st and it's really hard, but that's okay. Just plant that seed, take off, let it grow a little bit. Okay, that's your job, planting awesome seeds. Okay, I have a few other things that I want to talk about, but I want to go and address a few questions first of all and see how you're all doing in the crowd. How y'all doing? Doing okay? Is some of this making sense? Okay, I'm seeing Edie. Hi, Edie. It's just sweetheart. So long. I see Justin's here and Manjeet, Ray. Some of you folks snuck in while I wasn't watching carefully enough. Okay, let me go up and see what some folks are talking about. Question from Melanie said, how do I persuade colleagues whom I've known for 3 months, currently towing the line of trying to make a great impression at a still new job while also making my boundaries known? For example, not participating in chats about what's for lunch, not attending events where animals are being eaten, etc. Okay, yeah. So, so I think this is a matter, Melanie, of again, just well, first of all, being awesome. Okay, that's the first place we start, is with being awesome. You don't have to make everybody know everything about you and your beliefs right off the bat. You can take a little bit of time for them to get to know you as a person, because when you speak from your beliefs, when and you are a full fleshed out person in their minds, again, much more likely to listen to you. But again, very much from the I. Okay. Just that, hey, yeah, like this was my experience. This is where I was before. This is what I experienced. And this is just where I had to go because of it. And lots of questions, if you get into a dialogue, just to say, hey, like, have you ever thought about going veg, or is it just like, is it the inconvenience of it, or is it like, what would stop you, kind of thing. Getting a little bit more information. The best thing, like the most important thing to remember when you're working with when you're dealing with colleagues, and people that you're going to be in longer relationships with, is to try to stay out of a place of judgment. Okay. That's a persuasion poison right there. A mentor of mine, Denise Lynn, once taught me, the moment you start to judge someone is the moment you lose the ability to influence them. Okay. Because that wall goes up. So there's a whole bunch of things that I need to keep in place, because I can easily be a judgy judgerson. So I've had to put some tactics into place to not go there, because that immediately kind of ruins it. That ruins my chances for really getting through to people. So what are some of those tactics, you ask? Okay, let's see. Here's one I use. To remember that I once was this person, or I actually still am this person in a different way. Okay, so folks, at some point in our lives, we have all done something that was damaging, and we either tried to ignore it or rationalize it, or we still do in some aspects of our lives. Okay, whether it's buying a whole bunch of plastics, even though we know it hurts biodiversity, or indulging in addictions when we know it's hurting those closest to us. As much as I feel shitty thinking about the number of animals that I ate before becoming veg, my connection to that reminds me of how automatic it is to rationalize and fool oneself, and how hard it is to give up lifelong habits and traditions. Okay, so it reminds me, and it reminds me that the person there isn't just like selfish or shitty, that there's some real stuff they're struggling with. Another thing that helps me, that I keep in mind when someone doesn't see or acknowledge the harm they're doing, is to understand that people are doing the best they can from what they know and are capable of. You see, most behavior, folks, most bad behavior comes from pain, from fear, from lack of access to knowledge, or the inability to learn or change. So, for example, if someone can't show compassion in certain areas, it was probably never modeled to them in a way they could understand. Or if they can't understand the idea of equality, of discrimination, they probably grew up in a very insular culture that really propagated these things. And sometimes they can have all the facts, but they still can't feel it. Okay, they're not psychologically capable of feeling it. Okay, and remembering that can start to soften my heart a bit and start to nudge me back to a place of knowing and integrity. And another thing, and any of you that have worked with me for a while knows this, I say it all the time, but everyone is a potential ally. Okay, so when I'm judging somebody, I am just like, and a judgment will often have me acting in a way that is not in my integrity. And it's not an integrity to someone who is an ally. Okay, they're not an ally yet, but everyone is a potential ally. So let's treat them like that. All right. Let me see. Viral said, one thing I'm struggling with is that I'm finding myself more activated by engaging negative than more activated by engaging a negative than creating a positive. I'd rather be in the life affirming, uplifting space than correct someone else's errors. Yeah. And so could you, Viral, just change the framing on that? Just that idea of correcting someone's errors. Okay, I think that is where the trouble derives from, is in again just that judgment of needing to correct someone's errors, as opposed to inviting someone into a conversation. Okay, assuming that that person has, a heart that would like to know some important pieces, but maybe what we need to tread a little bit more lightly with. Okay, so instead of thinking about somebody needing to be corrected, thinking about inviting them into the circle of compassion or the circle of awareness. Okay, it's a different feeling. So it's not the feeling of like, I gotta right you, I gotta get you righted. It's a matter of, my friend, come into this circle of compassion. Let me share some things with you. And they might not be easy to hear. They weren't easy for me to hear, but I know and trust that you have a loving heart and you would like to know. Okay. And sometimes they won't, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Um, Ina says, this is super helpful for a lobbying meeting I have coming up. I'm glad. Good to know, Ina. Anne said, when I lived in the UK and at college, I took a petition around to stop harp seal hunt. One guy who was a vegetarian blasted me and called me a hypocrite for eating meat. I walked away. It was a few years later before I stopped eating meat. I often quote the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Yes. And it's an oldie, but a goodie. How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you want to be more persuasive, there's your book right there. Okay, Patricia asks, how do you change the thinking around there's so much suffering in the world, people are dying, et cetera, children are dying, so animals are the least of our worries? Yeah, that's a really great question, and one that a lot of animal advocates struggle with. Actually, anybody in any advocacy, people will find a reason for their issue to not be the most important. And so, again, using their noble qualities to engage them is probably going to be one of the best tactics for this. So to be able to say, yeah, yes, oh my goodness, like there's so much poverty, there are so many children dying, and they're so vulnerable, and it hurts so much. And that's exactly why why I'm also feel so strongly about animals. They're so vulnerable. They're the most vulnerable beings in our society because there's no protections. There's no protections around them. So that's why. And there's also 80 billion of them that we're manufacturing every year, that we're raising and killing every year. 80 billion. That's 10 times the population of humans on Earth. So something to that regard. So really acknowledging, yes, people dying in the world, wars and children, it's all horrible stuff. And we're not going to deny that. Nobody's going to deny that. And it's about, can you extend your compassion just a little further? Because it's not going to hurt you to include these ones too. This might be a little inconvenient. It's not going to hurt you. All right. Let's see what else we have. Justin said, I just went through this recently when I made a post saying that the beef burger I ate 15 years ago could have still been alive today, instead of saying that beef burger you ate 15 years ago could still have been alive today. Absolutely. It's taking it upon yourself. I love that. Okay. Justin also said, not taking things personally is a superpower. Easier said than done. Yeah, absolutely. Tenebrae says, people think I look angry even when I'm not. So you're going to need to do some mirror work, my dear. Okay, I'm not going to read through, but I do have time for one more question. If somebody has a question that I have not addressed, please just put your hand up. I can see all of you, or you can raise your hand using the little button. Okay. All right. And I'm sorry that I am not able to read through all of your comments right now. Folks, I will, and as you know, I always read them after the fact. So make sure, I'll make sure that I read them. And if there was any question that went unanswered, then I will see if I can track you down and give you an actual answer to this. Okay, so going once, going twice. Any other questions, folks? Okay, I would love to know in the comments, what one thing resonated with you, just so that I can see and feel what speaks to you. Again, I just did a whole presentation about listening and it was a one-way thing. So I would love to know what it is that really resonated with you and that helps you. And then that helps me to be more persuasive in my future, runs at this topic. Yeah. Oh, Vera, love that formula. Yeah, that's a really good one. Listening with intention. Excellent. Never shame people. Be a full person, not just a walking PSA. Love it. Make the why stand out. Yes, Lucy, that is such an important one for you too, because the why that you have to communicate to these businesses is so huge. Paint that picture for them. It's a beautiful one. I believe in it. Geraldine, speaking to your audience's aspirations, appealing to the noble self, ask questions to engage. Oh, you are all such good students. You were actually listening. I love it. All right, folks, take yourself off of mute so I can hear some sounds and some life there. We will be back here for the Changemaker sessions in 2 weeks. Not sure what the topic is yet. I always sort of try to feel it out, see what's happening. But it's going to be something, it'll be a good one. And remember, I always like to hear from you if there's a topic that you'd like to hear. I still have a couple on my list of ones that you suggested, but I'm always looking for new ideas of what you'd like to learn. Yeah, I love reading all of the things that you took out of this, folks. All right, I wish you the most spectacular experiences of persuasion. I'm going to invite you to have some conversations with some easier people to start with in the next few days and just practice some of those techniques, okay? And I'd love to hear about it. Drop me a line anytime. And we're here every 2 weeks, 7 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Sending you all my love. Mwah. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Kim.
Bye.
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 Love hearing your voices.
Bye.
Take care,
Have
you
a-
my spectacular change makers.
Have a